It is a pleasure to have you on the show. We've had you on, I believe, a couple years ago, and, we always enjoy talking about the Chili Bowl. You guys put on a fantastic midget show out there, and you've done well over the years. That's all I can say, man. You've done well.
Well, when you get the Tony Stewarts, the Casey Canes, the Yaleys, the Swindells, this event here is, I trust me, I wasn't smart enough to make this thing work. I'm going to just try to be smart enough not to mess it up. But when you got the talent, when you got the best sprint car drivers, the best midget drivers, best NASCAR drivers, drag racing, modifieds, it's just, we got 266, I think, pre-entered.
Wow.
So
that little thumb wheel? The little thumb wheel on your mouse, on your computer?
Yeah.
I'm rolling down the list of entries and it caught on fire. Holy crap! It goes
like
forever.
Kyle Larson, the young money. He's been down in New Zealand. I think he's won all 4 midget events down there in New Zealand and outrun Brian Clausen in all of them. So them guys are headed back from New Zealand coming up here. But it's just to look at the talent that's here, it's absolutely unbelievable.
Emmett, can anybody stop the Swindells?
This track is so small, and there's nobody getting around it like Sammy and Kevin. But I know over the years they say you have to have some Chili Bowl luck, and they've had that luck, and I just don't know how long. If somebody would have told me that somebody could win it 3 years in a row, they could have won what little money I had in my pocket. Because I just don't think that would have happened.
And some of the names on this entry list, Jack Hodenschild, there's...
Yeah, just pick.
I'm looking at this. That was one that just jumped out at me. It's just,
to me, this is like
who's who.
Yeah. This is like we have in other sports All-Star games, the Pro Bowl. This is it. This is the best of the best squaring off. Yeah.
This is a Pro Bowl of short track racing.
Absolutely,
and, It's just it's unbelievable. And that Kyle Larson, he ran third to the Swindells last year. I think if anybody's got anything for him, it'll be him. But then again, Sammy and Kevin has built new cars for this race this year. So,
brand
why?
new bullets. Yeah.
Yeah, really, why?
Yeah.
Emmett, let me ask you, the Chili Bowl, when you guys were all sitting around in the bonfire or wherever you were when you thought, let's form this thing we call the Chili Bowl. When was that, and how did it come about?
Well, in '86, I came out here and I ran my Tulsa Shootout, which back then we ran Odysseys, go-karts, the micros, quads, just a little bit of everything. And after I ran it that year, Lanny down at the Devil's Bowl, he knew all the sprint car drivers because he had the first World of Outlaw race. And so I called Lanny and told him, I said, if we could get the sprint car drivers, the name drivers in here, Steve Kinzer and Sammy and Wolfgang and all them guys, to come in here. The track's not big enough for sprint cars, but I said we could put them in midgets. And when the first 3 or 4 or 5 years, it was really the sprint car drivers versus the midget drivers, because back then, most of the midget guys didn't, they just ran midgets. They didn't run sprint cars or Silver Crown cars. And that's the way it was the first 4 or 5 years. And after that, now then the midget guys are in sprint cars, so it's just evolved into the who's who in short track racing.
Well, and the thing that I like, Emmett, is as you look at this entry list, and you mention it, you've got people from all different genres. From sprint cars, midgets, modifieds, drag racers. Drag racers come out and compete. How historically do drag racers do at this little track in Tulsa?
Well, Ron Capps, the first year he come in here and run, we crashed him pretty good. He crashed pretty good. I said, the good news is, Ron, is you wasn't running 300 mile an hour when you crashed.
Right, yeah.
But, and then, the guys, now then some of the drag racers, they own the midgets, and they're hiring some shoes to put in them. Gary Selsey, his kid, Gary's raced here, and now then I think his kid's starting to race. So it's just, when I sit here and look what's here, and it's like the Green Bay Packers on our. Every seat in here is a reserve seat in the spectator part of it.
Right.
It's like the Green Bay Packers. Somebody has to die. We had some guys from California, 7 or 8 guys. One of them passed away, and they turned on each other trying to get his seat.
That's hilarious.
And, so that's where we're very fortunate there. You know, they have until end of May, I think, to get reserve their seat for the following year. So really, the 1st of June, the thing is sold out again.
See, Emmett, that is how Indy used to be. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
You know, the benefit for the drag racers that I see being in an indoor facility is when the sun comes out, they don't have to shut the track down like they do on the drag strip.
Right, yeah.
Why don't you guys shut
there
up?
You go.
Hey, don't
because
start
the sun's
it with
in their
me,
eyes,
Emmett.
so let's have it away.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, now we got our Race of Champions here that we ran here on our first preliminary night, first qualifying night on Tuesday night. And you got, Casey Kane. When you got people like Casey Kane and Kyle Larson that don't qualify for the Race of Champions, that just tells you how strong that thing is.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I mean, not to take the attention off of this, but look at last year's Knoxville Nationals. Steve Kinzer, Sammy Swindell both fell to qualify.
Yeah, sitting there watching the main event.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. These young kids are just coming in here, and I mean, some of them don't know that you can get hurt.
Yeah.
And what's the old saying, young and dumb? I've been there myself when I started racing.
Yep, young and bulletproof.
Have you had a concern or an issue with not attendance, but putting people in seats? I mean, as far as where to put them. I mean, this thing has grown to the point where have you outgrown the building?
That's a great
well,
question.
there's not another building in the country as big as this building right here. And I think we have about 7,400 reserve seats, and we've got about 2,000 or 2,500 for pit people to sit in, and that's a first come, first serve. But Go Vision comes up here. We got big screens all over this thing because there's people Wednesday through Saturday that just comes in and buys a pit pass, and if they don't get a seat over there, they just have to sit up here in the pits and just watch it on the big screen.
What about track preparation, Emmett? I mean, I've believe it or not, followed your career for many, many, many years, and so I'm very familiar with who Emmett Hahn is. Track preparation indoors versus outdoors, is there any difference?
It's probably easier. It is easier in here because we don't have to deal with the wind, the sun, or it being cloudy. The temperature's pretty much the same all the time, and so it's easier in here. I mean, that don't mean that we still don't screw up. But,
right.
It is easier to prepare it. And you know what I'm most proud of? I take pride in racetracks doing the dirt work, but when we start hot laps on Saturday at 11:30 in the morning, and our main event ends up at 10:30 that night, and you still got the same racetrack that you started with, that just makes me feel good. We end up redoing it that day probably twice, completely redoing it, but it don't take but about 45 minutes to do it. So it's been good to us.
Well, I don't know what group has helped improve Las Vegas Motor Speedway, but I wondered were you behind that? Because boy, their first few years, that was definitely a process of learning for them to try to get that track better. But they've certainly got it better. But I'm absolutely impressed because you are right. Many times at the Chili Bowl, I mean, with as much racing as you guys do on that track, it is amazing how well groomed it stays throughout the entire week. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and our track people and everybody does that. After we get through with the shootout, they said this Chili Bowl is just a piece of cake. We had almost 1,000 cars here a week ago at our Tulsa shootout.
Wow.
And one day, I think we ended up on a Sunday the way the dates fell, but I know on a Saturday, we ran over 10,000 laps on this racetrack, and it was still racing.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah,
that's very, very, very impressive.
Emmett, over the years, and you've seen a lot of racing there at the Chili Bowl, do you have a most memorable moment?
Of course, a couple of the Swindell finishes have been good, but years ago, Paige Jones, he and PJ started up. Maybe Paige started on the front row, and his brother PJ started right there close to him. But PJ stalled the car down there in 1 and 2 early, like the first or second lap. He went to the back of the main event and came up through there and was racing with Page for the lead in about 20 laps. And then Kenny Schrader spun out and took them both out. But I mean, that was one of the best races that to watch PJ come from where he did. But then here 2 or 3 years ago, Sammy got in a fender bender, went to the back, came back up about halfway, got in another little crash, went to the back, and then came back up and run second, I think, with a bent front end.
Anybody anyone ever run the alphabet soup? I mean, we saw, I believe it was Wolfgang who did it in '89 at Knoxville. Has anybody ever ran the alphabet soup in order to win?
Yes. I was at Knoxville the year Wolfgang done that. Here about 5 or 6 years ago, Sammy was in like that one of the twin E features.
Yeah.
And came up, started at the back of the main, and was running second in the feature. He had the work already done.
Wow.
And the drive line started vibrating, and he had to quit. Even the anti-Swindell fans applauded him because that was one of the best runs that I'd ever seen here at the Chili Bowl. And J.J. Yaley has done it, too,
Did
years
you just
ago.
say anti-Swindell fans?
There's a few of them.
Yeah.
Really?
Where have you been,
There's
Steve?
a few.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. That doesn't sat well with me. Anti-Swindell fans?
Not everybody's from Memphis, you know.
Exactly right.
I don't care what. Yeah.
Well,
oh, boy.
Well, it's going to be exciting, another exciting Chili Bowl, and we look forward to following it. And I imagine it's going to be on tape delay at some point. You're going to rebroadcast it?
Yes, they are. They're coming in. Lucas coming in. Their production company's doing it, and it'll be replayed on Speed Channel, and I don't know the dates on it. It's usually about 2 weeks after the fact.
Yeah. So check out Speed then.
Excellent. Well, Emmett, good to have you on the show, and boy, you've done well with the Chili Bowl,
Yes.
and we really
And
appreciate you
with
joining
many
us.
other things
Absolutely.
in open wheel racing.
Well, it's been awful good to us. And I just heard them guys talking about Green Bay and Minnesota.
That's right.
Don't forget where Adrian Peterson came from. He's an Okie.
Yeah, that's right. He
there
is.
you go.
That he
There
is.
you go.
That he is.
2 weeks in a row can be done.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I know. The guy's he's a great athlete, isn't he?
Yeah,
He is.
He's really turned a lot of heads this year coming back from that injury, so it'll
Right,
be fun to
yeah.
watch. Hey, thanks, Emmett. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Hey,
You
you
do the
too.
same. There he is, Emmett Hahn, the co-owner and promoter of the Chili Bowl Nationals, Tulsa, Oklahoma.